Yeah, I think that in some ways unique thing about the Jewish and Christian faiths is the belief that God is active in the contingencies of history. Many other religions don't quite see God or the gods as present in that way. And one of the most unique things is the belief that God is active in the midst of the worst contingencies. And what we're facing, I mean, there have been moments, I think, where anyone listening to this would feel kind of vertigo, like, oh my goodness, this could be really horrible. There's nothing as horrible as having the neighboring empire sweep into your tiny little nation, decimate all of your young people, carry the remainder off to their foreign capital, and embark on a project of cultural genocide that is just subjugating you and making you, in this case, into Babylonians. And they burn your city, and they burn your temple, and they take away all the beautiful things that were devoted to God as you understood him. And you end up on by the waters of Babylon. Psalm 137 says, by the waters of Babylon, we sat down and wept when we remembered Zion, we remembered Jerusalem. And that's as dire as the scenarios could be of what might happen in the wake of all this. It's hard to imagine anything more dire than that kind of cultural eradication. And the psalmist of Psalm 137 says, how can we sing the song of the Lord in this foreign land? And the implied answer is, there is no way. The psalmist also goes on with these really, really fierce, terrifying words of imprecation against the Babylonians, wishing for the deaths of their children. It's quite horrible. And at that moment, it feels like, what could come of this? But the amazing witness of the Hebrew Bible, and then picked up in the Christian scriptures and the Christian reception of the Hebrew Bible, is the belief that actually God was there, that there is a way to sing the Lord's song in a foreign land, that in fact the way that Israel learned to sing in that situation of exile strengthened it in a way that never would have happened without it, caused a national reckoning with sin, and led to a partial restoration to the land. But then for Christians, this story gets picked up in the arrival of Jesus. And then Jesus recapitulates the whole thing, and he weeps over Jerusalem as he foresees its destruction again by Roman armies. And then he himself is crucified by the Roman occupiers. And it seems like his movement is going to be eradicated. And we believe that's not the end of the story. And so whatever your worst case scenario is, the witness of the Bible is God is mysteriously, powerfully, gracefully present in it, and actually can unlock possibility for the world, even in the very, very worst things that have ever happened to people. And just one more thing to say, Andrew, is that Israel was not the only nation that the Babylonians assimilated, but it's the only one that survived. It's the only one we still know the name of. And in fact, we have no remnants of the great empire of Babylon in the traces of history in any particularly notable way. But the people who went through that crucible of exile, because in fact God was their God, are with us today, are bearing witness to that God today. And as Christians, we believe all of us now get invited into that story. So that exile becomes all of our story. That to me is the deep hope in this, in the contingencies of this moment, which may turn out for better or for worse, who knows? But there's nothing so bad that it can't be taken up into the story of exile and into the story of the cross.
One of my favorite parts about the Babylonian exile is the Jews were told to contribute to the health of the city.
Yes.
Not to withdraw, but to contribute to the mainstream culture. And in that moment, they created the idea of a minority group and a creative minority group.
Yes.
That would never try to become the majority group.
Yes.
That's a genius twist of a really civilizational shift.